All right, so I'm here to see Civil War. I have reservations about this movie. My expectations are very low just based on the trailer alone. The main way this movie can make me mad is by it doesn't matter. It does not matter what my reservations were, what I was afraid of. It doesn't matter because the movie doesn't care enough about its own existence to tell us why there's a civil war. It doesn't justify why it exists, why the world exists. We never learn why there's a civil war. There are two secessionist groups. I hope that's the right way to put that. Two secessionist groups. There's Texas and California, and then there's the Florida Alliance. We don't know why they seceded. It just is. The movie is violence porn. It is gruesome and violent, and it's nonsensical because I don't know why it's happening. I think this movie will hit for some people because I think the writer was like, I think he just thought like the idea of a civil war in the United States is scary. That's enough to sustain a movie. That's enough to reel people in. That's enough to make them think that something worthwhile happened during the hour plus we're sitting there. Nothing worthwhile happened. And the violent nature of the movie is further underscored by the journalists. Actually, I don't know if journalists were the right lens through which to show us this world. Because you have Lee, Kristen Dunst's character, who is dead inside and bitter, and the team just photographs everything they see. Between her and Jesse, they're just photographing anything they see. Even when one of their own dies, they take a picture. And so they just come off like looky-loos. It doesn't, like, I know they're journalists, so they're supposed to be, I don't know what the hell they're supposed to be, but they try to justify their own existence by saying that they are, like, informing people of what's going on, but we never see anyone benefit from what they're doing. They're taking pictures. They don't have a deadline. They're just driving through and photographing dead bodies. They're like war violence tourists. Essentially, that's what they come off as. It's a team of 4 people. You've got the 2 white women, and then you've got a very light-skinned black man, and then you have the Latino guy. Guess who doesn't matter? Guess which 2 don't matter? Guess which 2 don't have real backstories? And it makes Lee, like, just... I don't care about her because I see her bonding with Jesse, who she just met, and I don't see much of a bond that goes any deeper between her and the Latino dude and the black dude. I don't remember their names. I wrote it down, but I'm not gonna look. And then it's ironic because after one of them dies, because duh, the girl, Jesse's, because you see whose name I do know. Jesse's like, I know I didn't really know him as much as I know you. And she's like, no, you knew him. What you saw of him is exactly who he was. And I was like, who was he? So we've got the president who is a dictator because he was compared to Mussolini. How did he become a dictator? We don't know, but he is on his 3rd term. Why do they still have term? I don't know. He disbanded the FBI. Why? I guess because it facilitates his dictatorship better. Who is leading the Texas and California alliance? I don't know. Anytime the news cuts on the radio, we only ever hear from the president of the United States. Do Texas and California have a militia? They should, because it's a civil war, but I only really see one military. The citizens are brandishing guns. They actually do most of the violence, but the citizens having guns just meddles the whole thing for me and confuses it. The Florida Alliance, do they have a military or a militia? I don't know. Who's leading it? I do not know. Inflation is apparently like super duper wild. Gas costs a whole body, and the Canadian dollar is more valuable than the US dollar. How did that happen? I don't know. Since the Canadian dollar is more valuable, where is Canada in all this? I don't know. There are 2 or 3 mentions about people who are acting like this war is not happening. They're just living their lives. And I think that's an indictment of those people. But I don't know why. I guess they should care because I don't know. The politics in this movie only exists insofar as to say there's a war, basically. Not to tell us what happened. Did this happen because of an election? Did this happen? Why did this happen? How long did it take for this to happen? I don't know. The movie doesn't know. All the movie knows is they wanted to show us that it's real dicey to live in America. you know, in this version of America. Hope, people of color die, of course. Literally, two Asian men show up in this movie, journalists. They show up just to be killed. A black man is set on fire. But it wasn't in America, though. It was to show us that Lee has covered wars. I give it a 1 out of 5. I give it a 1 out of 5, and I don't think I'm coming back to the more in-depth review. This was the in-depth review. This was the depth. The movie has no depth. Yeah, I think Lee is a terrible character, and so is Jesse. Just because I don't know why I should care about them getting to know each other when there's a literal civil war. I think this movie would have benefited from showing multiple viewpoints from all three parties. So the U.S. government, the Texas-California Alliance government, and the Florida Alliance. Who was in the Florida Alliance? I don't know. All I know is that they had beef against South Carolina. That was Civil War. 1 out of 5. Here I'm going to critique the lens through which this story was written, specifically the objective lens, the both sides, no sides, throwing rock, hiding my hand lens that this movie was told in. I said in my review that Civil War is violence porn. It's also a lazy movie. Let's talk about why. It relies on the audience to do all of the work, not even the majority of the work, all of the work. It relies on the audience to bring in their fears, their hangups about specifically US politics in order to evoke emotion in them. You may have seen a whole bunch of headlines about how this movie is a warning about, where America may be going. It's a statement on the political divide. For context about me, in terms of the real world political divide, anytime I hear the phrase, the country's more divided than it's ever been, I immediately zoom out because I'm like, more divided compared to when? Like, is that statement informed by history, or are you exaggerating to make a point? And it would be better to say the country's more divided than it's ever been in my lifetime, not mine personally, because then if you say in your lifetime, who are you? Like, which community do you belong to? Because depending on which community you belong to, that may not necessarily be the case. I say that to say that this idea or perhaps goal of the movie to, I don't know, scare people straight or make us think, there was a low chance that was going to happen for me, specifically because of who's behind the movie. Alex Garland is a white man, and the probability of a white man doing something politically motivated, socially motivated in a work of art, especially a movie, that's gonna make me sit back and think, the probability is very, very low. I will say, actually, the whole objectivity, taking the emotions out of it. The journalists have no emotions. They're unbiased. Being academic about a subject is actually a very white, very privileged take. And a result of wanting to take the emotions out of it, the sides out of it, what ends up happening for this movie, for me, it takes the humanity out of it. This movie has no humanity because this movie has no ideology. We are presented with three factions, right? The US government, Texas, California, Florida Alliance. So, and it's a civil war. So then you would think there are three ideologies at play. And there is no investment. The movie doesn't bother to tell us what those ideologies are. I didn't need the movie to name check Republicans or Democrats. Make something up. Make up the ideologies. Make up the reason why this war is happening. This movie lacks humanity, which is ironic because there's a war happening. It has a whole lot of violence, but no humanity. We don't meet anybody who is actually impacted by this war. Lots of bodies dropping, lots of facts being thrown around like the president had done an airstrike on Americans, but we don't even get numbers. How many casualties have there been? How many civilian we see the civilian casualties, but what's the context? How many have there been? The journalists don't care. They're chasing the picture. And then the non-combatants that we meet or are referenced in the movie don't care either, because we meet the woman in the store who's staying out of it. Jesse mentions her father, I believe, who lives in Middle America and thus is not affected by the war and is pretending it's not happening. And then I believe Lee says her family also is not involved. Joel and Sammy are just plain not given families. The journalists take a lot of pictures. Pictures are worth 1,000 words. Where are the words? The writer of the group doesn't write a damn thing. We never get a voiceover of an article he's written to tell us what is the toll that this war has had on the people of the country. Where are the people in this America? And no, showing us that refugee unhoused camp near DC that's full of like black people, that's not humanizing the war. And I think it is cowardly and ill-advised, clearly, because I give the movie a 1 out of 5. It's cowardly to use the real world US, political landscape to make a movie that's supposed to speak to the audience about the real world US political landscape and be like, it's objective, it's nonpartisan, and give it zero ideology. And here's the thing. Like I said, this movie, the chances that this movie was going to scare me or make me think was very, very low, which is why I really wanted a story. And it's why I'm so, disappointed about the lack of story. There's no internal world story in the movie. The movie has this vibe of, oh my God, these Americans are being so cruel to each other. Let's zoom in on the scene where Jesse Plemons' character, well acted, nobody failed at acting, which is why it hasn't won. That what type of American are you seeing, right? My fear going into this movie, which I deleted from my initial review, I cut it out. My caution going into this movie was that it would use real stuff that's happened to communities of color, in America, put it in a fictionalized setting and call it dystopian America. That what kind of American are you seeing is an example. It didn't really bother me too much because the movie has so many other things wrong with it, turns out. But that's what I mean by this movie was the probability that this movie was gonna like tell me anything would be low. The best chances it had was to have me connect with the characters, and it didn't even do that. But what kind of American are you? What a coincidence that the wrong type of American is the Asian guy. What a coincidence that neither of the white women were the wrong type of American. They were the right type of American. What a coincidence that when he asked Joel that question, the tension comes from the fact that Joel has an accent that is not American. Right? So when the Asian guy goes down, the second one, the first one, who knows, we didn't even bother to find out why he got killed. But when the second one goes down for being from China, I'm like, so he got killed for being the wrong kind of American. And yes, he was born in another country, but also, Japanese internment can't stop and frisk. Like the idea of certain Americans not being the right kind of American and thus losing their lives by an arm of the state, it's supposed to be shocking because it's on the screen. The director and writer says that, the movie is a tribute to war correspondents, and knowing that fact doesn't improve the movie in any way. Actually, I said before that the movie dehumanizes the journalists. Nobody has humanity in this movie. The journalists are objective and the movie is objective. And I think that was a mistake. Either have the journalists be objective robots and have the movie be objective, but in a way that shows multiple points of views, or have the movie be objective, but have some of the journalists have different point of views. They all have the same personality. Jesse could have been our entry point into someone who has been impacted by the war, who maybe her brother has been drafted to fight in some side of the war. What are the borders like? Jesse could have been our entry point, but her arc is going from sensitized to desensitized, and her sensitization lay in the fact that extreme violence made her throw up. That has nothing to do with the specific scenario of the movie. Plug any character from any other movie, I'm sure extreme violence makes them throw up. All in all, Civil War is a flat movie that wants to evoke complex emotions. Ironic.